Hello everyone, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. My name is Mutale Kabumbu and I am a resident psychotherapist at Renaissance. For today, we are going to be exploring the effects of untreated mental illness and mental health challenges. And the idea is just to be able to help you identify where the challenges may be in your life and the things that you could do in order to help resolve them. So a lot of the times when we think about mental illness, we think of someone in the streets, poorly dressed, if not naked, picking food from the streets or from, dustbins and things like that. But mental health exists on a spectrum. It doesn't just happen that somebody goes into distress. So think of it as a number line. And on this number line, we're progressively moving towards mental illness. So we have healthy, and then we have, coping, then we have struggling, and then we have a mental health crisis. So now, on this number line, a person can move from healthy to crisis, and a person can move from a crisis to healthy. So what causes a person to move from healthy to coping to struggling to crisis is distress or stress. And when we talk about stress, we're talking about all the variety of things that an individual goes through in their life. It could be from work, it could be from family, it could be, from just social interactions. There are a number of things that can be considered stressors in our everyday life. And the more that we don't deal with those stresses in our lives, the more we move down on the number line towards a crisis. Well, when we come to talking about the most common types of mental health disorders in this country, looking at all the private institutions that deal with mental health, we're talking about the public institutions. And in our work, some of the things that we come across a lot more often are things like mood disorders, which is your depression, bipolar. We also have anxiety disorders. We do have a lot of sleep disorders that we help to treat. We also have substance-related disorders. So these are your addictions, your various types of addictions. There are also, what we also see, especially in the public institutions, is psychotic disorders. We have, in some cases as well, post-traumatic stress disorders. Firstly, culturally speaking, mental illness is not something that we have grown up accustomed talking about. And that provides a huge challenge, because then how do you firstly identify that you're struggling mentally? But also, one of the challenges around seeking help for mental illness is the stigma that comes with it. When you've thought about a time when you've been struggling mentally, one of the challenges that is there is thinking that somebody might think that you're weak, you're incapable of just dealing. It's life. Why can't you just deal? Why can't you get over it? So the stigma that comes, first of all, with having a diagnosable mental health condition. So walking around, having said that, oh, I've struggled with depression, that particular label can be quite challenging to live with. So a lot of the times people don't seek help because they don't want the label that they have or are struggling with mental illness. Also, you have just the notion of shame that comes with experiencing mental illness. A lot of the times, mental illness is related to weakness and incapacity. But there's a variety of mental health challenges that people experience that are all treatable, that there's help available for. But there's a lot of shame that comes with struggling with mental illness. It's almost as though it's taboo to have a mental health challenge. We also have the lack of information. People just don't know, first of all, what is mental health, what is mental illness. But further, they also don't even understand, is it treatable? What kind of treatment is available within our system, within our country, in order to treat mental illness? And lastly, I think one of the biggest challenges that is there is resources, or an ability to actually afford mental health treatment. And this is why when we do videos like this, it's there to give you information that you could use readily in your everyday life to help you navigate any challenges that you're experiencing. We understand that it's not always easy financially to be able to go and seek help, same as in with any of the challenges we're experiencing financially. So it can be quite challenging to seek out mental health treatment when you don't have the finances, when you think that it's actually expensive. When you talk about mental health is just your ability to, function at a physiological, social, and emotional level. So when we talk about the effects of mental illness and untreated mental health challenges, you're looking at all these areas in your life being affected significantly. You're talking about your physical, and with the physical, let me give you an example of somebody who experiences anxiety. One of the key things about anxiety is experiencing a lot of tension. Now, tension is something that you will feel in your physical body. It's not just an idea or a feeling. You also experience it in your muscles, because your muscles will contract and you will feel tense. So you have your shoulders up, you might have your fists clenched, and all that over time, if untreated, it causes a lot of stress on your body, because then your body moves around in a state of tension, which can affect a lot of other aspects of your well-being. Then you also have things like stress. When you experience stress on a physical level, when you're stressed, you find you have difficulties sleeping, you have difficulties relaxing. So all that, if you're not sleeping, what's going to happen to you physically? It creates a lot of room for fatigue in your body, and you have all those challenges that arise out of that. Also, certain mental health conditions can cause you to neglect certain aspects of your well-being. So, for example, eating healthy, exercising, and all those things. When you're living with an untreated mental illness or mental health challenge, it can cause significant impact. So if you're not eating consistently or not eating as you should, you find yourself losing weight, and that comes with its own problems. Or you find yourself overeating, which could lead to obesity. So those are some of the physical effects. But we also have challenges that arise in terms of socially. When people are experiencing mental health challenges, the last thing that tends to happen is wanting to be around other people. So people tend to socially withdraw. So they spend more time by themselves. They spend more time in their homes, in their rooms. And I know this is the time of COVID, so it almost doesn't make sense to say, but how does that play in? But you see, there's a lot of ways that we've been able to maintain socialization within these times of COVID. We've still been able to engage in social activities, whether it's online or it's via so many things that we're using now. You have your WhatsApps and your Instagrams, your Facebooks. So all those things are ways to still maintain a social connection. But if you're struggling with a mental health condition, it's very easy to then also walk away and detach from that social engagement. And that means that you can't then attend to your immediate relationships. So that creates a gap, because relationships require nurturing. They require being able to talk to other people. And if you're not able to do that because you have a mental health condition, then you go months without engaging socially, and that could result in a lot of isolation, which is also unhealthy. We also have risks of, job loss. If somebody is sick physically, they take time off work to tend to their illness and to recover and to allow themselves enough time to be able to get back into being present at work and effective. But now imagine if you're struggling with a mental health issue that you're not treating, you're not acknowledging. So now you're at work and no one knows that you're struggling. Your boss doesn't know you're struggling. Your head of HR or your HR department doesn't know that you're struggling. So the expectations remain the same. The expectations for you to perform, for you to do your job remain the same. The workload might even be the same or even increase, but you can't perform at the same level because you're struggling mentally. So you start to underperform. You find yourself having challenges concentrating, having challenges being able to do the work that was very easy to you 3 months ago. And that increases risk of job loss. simply because you're not performing, but there's no understanding as to why you're not performing, because no one knows you're not acknowledging your own condition. So in that sense, you find yourself being at a point where you could risk losing your job, or even actually losing your job because of that, if your mental illness is left untreated. But also, any workplace requires engagement. It requires engagement between colleagues, between supervisors, superiors, and all that. So now, if you are experiencing difficult emotions as a result of your mental health challenge, you find that there's a difficulty in being able to communicate effectively. You might find yourself having outbursts at work. You might find yourself, not being able to manage your emotions within the workplace. That results in difficult interpersonal relationships, which then also impact the risk of job loss. So all these things come out of untreated mental illness. Ultimately, one of the other things that is quite significant is that we don't exist in a vacuum. As any human being, there's at some point, there is some sort of engagement with someone else. You do have a relationship with another person. This could be family, it could be friends, it could be all these social aspects of your life. So now, in a situation where you are experiencing a mental health challenge and it's left untreated, as a parent, that impact is negative and it can be quite significant. So, for example, yes, you're a parent and you're experiencing a mental health challenge. You're experiencing a lot more negative and difficult emotions. How then do you tend to the needs of your children? How then can you tend to the needs of, your child is hurt or your child needs emotional support? How do you do that? If you're in a partnership, you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, how do you tend to the needs of the relationship? How do you sit present and, excited about your marriage or engaged in your relationship? It becomes very difficult, and that can be a huge strain on the relationship itself, which could ultimately lead to the relationship ending or the marriage coming to a divorce because one person is not as engaged in the relationship. All those things require you to be mentally healthy in order for them to be effective. The last thing is on just your emotions. One of the very interesting things and the best parts of positive mental health is being able to experience a wide range of emotions. That means being able to experience sadness at some times and being able to experience joy, excitement, and all these positive feelings. But the idea is that experiencing a lot of difficult emotions all at once consistently can be quite challenging on your perspective of life, also even just on your well-being. So if you're consistently sad or you're consistently worried or you're consistently anxious, what kind of perspective do you see about the future? What kind of perspective do you have then about your everyday life? It's very hard to be excited about life. It's very hard to be optimistic about life if you're consistently worried. So when your mental illness or your mental health challenges go untreated, you're more on the negative emotions side of the spectrum, which makes it very difficult for you to find life fulfilling. So life becomes just something that you're surviving rather than something that you're actually living and enjoying. So I'm going to take us back to the spectrum. And at each part of this spectrum, there are different resources that you could utilize in order to be able to manage your mental health. So at the healthy side, when you're healthy, you know that you're doing well, you're not struggling mentally, you're okay. This is the point to engage in a lot of self-care. You want to be able to engage in maintenance activities. So in the maintenance activities, you're looking at engaging in things that encourage connection. So being able to, talk to loved ones, feel that sense of belonging, be able to experience love from your family and your friends and your support system. You also want to be able to engage in, activities that bring a lot of sense of achievement. So learn something new, push yourself to, gain a skill. You also want, this is very important, one of my favorites, is being able to do things that simply bring about a sense of enjoyment. So you want to do things that are simply fun. So have some fun, laugh out loud, bake and dance. It's very important to be able to do these things because all these activities maintain that healthy perspective, that healthy aspect of your mental well-being. Then we move to at the point of coping. So now this is where you are experiencing some sort of stress in your life and now you're trying to deal with it and manage it. At this point, the key aspect is to engage your support system. So talk to people around you, engage your support system. These are people that you trust and people who are more focused on ensuring that you're okay, people whose perspective of you is good, people who love you. So you want to engage those people to share your problems. You want to be able to gain perspective. Just ask, how do you see this situation? Am I seeing it, the right way? Am I seeing it in a healthy way? This can help you to just navigate your challenges quite differently and help you to start to do things differently because you'd have changed perspective. So that's on the coping side. So you want to engage people that you love. Ask for help from people around you. This is very important at this stage. Now, as we move towards struggling and crisis, so the more that you move towards the end of the line, the more support you need. So this is maybe you have spoken to friends and things are not changing or things are not getting better. This is at the point where now you reach out to a professional, and this could be a counselor, this could be a therapist, this could be people at Renaissance. At this point, what you want to be able to do now is get a perspective from a therapist. And what a therapist will be able to do is to guide you towards, first of all, understanding your challenges, being able then to find alternative perspective that is much healthier and much more accurate towards, experiencing life in a more positive way. Your therapist, will work with you in being able to equip you with skills that can help navigate some of the challenges that you're facing. So yes, we call it, talk therapy, and we're just talking, but there's a lot that we can achieve through talking. As we talk, you and I, we'll be able to, learn how else can we deal with this challenge? How else can I see these things that I'm going through in order for me to resolve them in a different way? What else can I do on my end? What's within my power? Being able to identify on your end what resources you actually have already that we can utilize in navigating your life. It also provides you a safe space where you don't, where you can unburden yourself and deal with these things in private, which would also resolve some of the things that were talked about earlier, such as the fear of stigma and the shame of experiencing a mental health condition. So being able to see a professional will allow you to do that. At this point, you might also need the support of medical attention. That's why we have psychiatrists as well who will be able to establish some sort of support for you on the medical side should you need it. But that's what would basically happen on the resource side in terms of how then can we help you, what kind of help can you access in terms of where your mental health is on that spectrum. Okay, as we come to a close, I think it's very important just to be able to note that understandably, mental illness and mental health challenges are very difficult to deal with, and it can be quite hard on an individual, on any person, to work through these difficulties. However, with everything that we've talked about today and all the information that's out there, it's very important for you as an individual to understand that any mental health challenge can be worked through. There is help available, and that learning about mental illness, learning about these resources is one way to actually help yourself. The next step is being able to ask for help. And when you're able to ask for help, you will be able to work through whatever it is that is struggling for you at the moment in order to be able to achieve positive mental health. There is always help, and it can always be treated.